By the way, Cyril or Cyril, what do you prefer?
It depends. انه ايه هون بلبنان اكثر انه
Cyril.
سيريل.
Okay.
ايه بس in the English pronunciation عم تطلع اكثر انه Cyril.
The last time you and I met was in 2021 اللي هو actually كان the first time you and I met. That's been 5 years since then لهلا. At the time I was doing a Q&A for your documentary short Beating Hearts. Since then you released Dancing on the Edge of the Volcano, and after that you released A Sad and Beautiful World. I want
صح.
what I want to ask you is I want to talk to you about the journey of getting the film made. I want to know, for young filmmakers that basically might want to know how they could get their film made in order for them to release it on the long run, basically. And I also want to know how the idea came to you. How long has this been cooking, and everything involved in that.
So the whole journey actually needs a lot of patience and perseverance. And I started writing in 2019. شوي قبل الثورة actually. So I started writing then, and then we finished development. I would say like 2023, like late 2023. So you're talking like more or less 4 years of development. In parallel, we started financing the film. But it took like approximately 2 years and a half for us to start applying for production funds. It's when the producer decided that there's a script that's decent enough that it can be shown to funds. So, and the problem is that since we don't have funding here, you have to start doing co-productions and apply to funds here and there. So you end up competing with all the rest of the world for a very small amount of funds. Whether it's Arab funds like the Red Sea Film Fund or the Doha Film Institute, or if it's European funds like the CNC, or German funds in my case. So yeah, it arrives like fund by fund, and then but behind every yes that you get, there's like maybe 10 no's. So also it needs a lot of acceptance that these are the rules of the game, and you're going to get a lot of rejection before you're actually going to get a fund. And there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that get discouraged along the journey, and they start feeling that this film is never going to get made, and they let go. And I was told, even in 2022, I think, or like early 2023, that why don't you move on to something else? Why don't you start writing something else? And I knew that the implications were this film is not going to get funded, or it's not going to complete its funding journey. So maybe start thinking of something else.
Hey, the artist stab. Why don't you move on to something? It's a stab.
It's a combination of you have to keep believing in it, but also you have to know how much you can push for it. Because I also got a bit lucky that I ended up getting all the financing that I needed. I'm not gonna say all that I needed, but all the financing that was the minimum required to actually go into production.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we went into production having no post-production funds.
Wow.
And that's something that sometimes the producers are very iffy about. But I told them, listen, if we have if we have 85% of the production funds, let's just go into production. I will cut something up. I will do something. Because I think once you start having images, it becomes a little easier to pitch, especially this film in particular, because there was a lot of funds that were considering it as, it's a romantic comedy. Like, okay, we're not going to fund that. They look for things that are a bit more politically driven, more socially engaged, but or more high concept, especially when it comes to Middle Eastern cinema.
But what confuses me is that I do feel like there is a charge underneath the main layer of the film that is socio-political in some way. I'm surprised to hear that they were considering it a romantic comedy, because it in my mind it does subtly hit what grants are looking for in terms of the socio-political fueled charged narrative that comes in that they give the money for, basically.
Absolutely. I think this was the entire objective, at least of my writing is to keep the social political background underneath, and then to focus on the main story, which is a love story and a story of characters and the human aspect of it, and not to because some versions of the script actually were the other way around, where the story of the country and the political background was the main thing, and then the couple was kind of underneath. And the producers were always pushing me of, no, you're like, you're putting too much social engagement, or political messages, they're too much in the forefront, and that's exactly what you should avoid doing, for the sake of the story. بس ايه انه it backfired a tiny bit, because some of the grants would not see this parallel. They would just see it as, oh, it's just a stupid romantic film. So ايه يعني that's why we struggled a tiny bit with the financing, because sometimes they would not see this layer. Now, when we had images and I started cutting the film together, I think this became much more apparent, and as a result, all the post-production funds that we applied for, we got all of them. So that taught me that, okay, either I wasn't pitching it correctly, or grants are looking for something that's more, readily in your face in its political messaging than what I was doing. I don't know, but I think it's the former. I think I wasn't pitching it very, very well.
Did you have to
I don't
change?
know.
Did you have to change anything? Did you have to adapt anything on behalf of certain people that were giving you the funding?
No. The only obligations you have when you get European funding, and it's a case by case, but generally is you have to spend a certain amount of the money you receive in their territory. So for example, if you receive money from France, there are certain grants you can spend half of it in your home country, and half of it you have to spend in France. So to circumvent that, if you're not shooting in France, which tends to be the case of our films, it's either you have to do some post production there, sound mix, color grading, the editing, whatever, visual effects, things that can travel easily without harming the film, or you have to hire French people and ship them to Lebanon, which is the case of some films. When you see a French DP working on a Lebanese film or anything like that, it's because they're trying to fulfill the spending obligations, and still somehow spend the money on production, because this is where our real lack is the production. Because you need to if you need to shoot in Lebanon, you have to spend the money in Lebanon. You have to work with people here. So there's a need sometimes to do these types of things. Now, in my case, I was very, very insistent that the DP is Joe Saadeh, Lebanese. I was very insistent that the music composer is Anthony Sohyoun, also Lebanese. I was very insistent that Rana Aid would be the sound designer, also Lebanese. So that I wanted the production designer Hanadi Medlesh to also be Lebanese. So at some point my producers were like you only want Lebanese people in your crew as heads of department. And I'm like, well, yeah, it makes sense, because it's a very Lebanese story, and it's hard also to get sometimes a creative input from, or a creative head of department from someone who hasn't lived here. Okay, for example, you cannot have a non-Lebanese sound designer putting the atmospheres and the ambience of Beirut 1990, or Beirut 2013, or Beirut 2024, because they don't understand how the city sounds, how the textures of the ambience, all of that. That's why I was so insistent. So as a result, I had to do other elements of post-production in European countries, and also I had to look for money that I could actually spend here, and that's why I have a co-production with the U.S. because we were able to get equity from the U.S. and that's money that we can spend here. Yeah. Now, how did the idea come about? It's it's a collection of things because you start with an idea and then it kind of evolves as you go. Especially that this story is very contingent on the uh, everything happening in the country. So the country was changing drastically in starting 2019. So I started. It was pre-revolution, pre-bank crisis, pre-financial collapse, pre-COVID, pre-August 4th explosion, pre-everything basically, pre-war with Israel. So all of these things were happening and were affecting the screenplay. So I think you start with an idea and it ends up being something else. But I would say one of the main things that pushed me into it, and it tends to be the case with my previous films as well, is a question that I struggle with or I debate with, and then when I cannot find a real answer, I usually try to explore it in a film because I'm like, okay, if there's no black and white answer, then I think it's worthy of exploring in a work of art. And here in this case it was really about making a family and bringing kids into this world in an overall atmosphere of cynicism, pessimism that is very typical of our generation and is a worldwide phenomenon. It's a universal thing. There's declining birth rates everywhere in the world because people are less optimistic about the future of the world with climate change anxiety, with financial burdens, all of that. And if you take this and you plant it in the Lebanese context, it's even more so because if you look at our history, every generation has known a profound crisis or a major war or anything, So it makes you wonder if there's really a better future for the upcoming generation, knowing that our generation didn't know that, and our parents' generation didn't know that, and our grandparents didn't know that. So why would the next one be any different? Yet at the same time, there's always this sense of hope and this lust for life and this joie de vivre that is so typical of our culture, and it's that mix and that paradox that pushed me into creating these two characters that have very contradicting energies and opposing uh, points of view, and yeah, having these two clash and collapse and debate all of these topics, and embed the spirit of Lebanon in all its contradictions and its paradox. Um, so yeah, that's a bit how
That's
everything was
beautiful.
evolving.
That's very beautiful, Kaman, how you translated it into the two characters. And this is what I loved very much is that I loved how they were the main focus of everything. Yeah, and it's interesting when you talk about that. It's a film about bringing kids, not a film about bringing kids, but like initially it was kind of like this question of like bringing kids into the world kind of thing. Ooh, by the end of the day, it being like a sad and beautiful world by the end of it. But speaking of the two characters, so you have Munya Aqil and Hassan Aqil playing the two characters that are
Yeah.
your leads basically. I can imagine the sad jokes over the Aqil and the Aqil things that were coming in throughout. By the way,
We got we got a few of are they a real couple in real life because they have the same last name.
I know what's interesting for me is what I know that you have a very long professional and personal relationship with Munya. She's acted in your old shorts, and she's acted in your new film. She's acting on Dancing on the Edge of the Volcano, and also in and A Sad and Beautiful World. And you've also edited her other films. She's also a very renowned filmmaker, by the way. She's done Costa Brava. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Um, I wanted to ask you how that dynamic is between you guys, and particularly on this film, and also how did Hassan as well come into play in this? Because I love their chemistry on screen. It's insane. It's like even from reverse angles, it's quite the way they react to each other is quite familiar. It doesn't. It feels like real life. Their gaze feels bigger than the screen, which is what I loved. And you guys paired it with a beautiful cinematography, with the close-ups and everything in that sense. So I want to talk about a bit of that dynamic with the actors, both Hassan and Munya.
Mm. So Munya, I wrote specifically for her, and I was using a lot of her own personality also for the character of Yasmina. I was using also, some of her own stories, like, she was also born in a hospital hallway because there were bombing around the hospital.
Wow.
So
Wow.
they were taking the patients outside, away from the windows, which is something that's all too familiar across generations in Lebanon. So there are similarities in that sense, but the spirit of the character is quite close to her in real life, and I think she also swings between joy of life, optimism, but also some cynicism and some pessimism. She's also very much debating her life here versus her life in Europe, because as you said, she works outside of Lebanon as well. She's directing series in the UK. So yeah, I think that she would understand the character very well. She can play someone that's a bit distant and cold, but at the same time have this sparkle in her eye and this childlike innocence that's hidden and that's so apparent. And the contradictions between these two, what you see through her eyes versus what she shows you, is exactly what Yasmina is all about. It's someone who draws a facade and puts a fortress around her to protect herself from feeling things, knowing that ultimately they can lead to disappointment and deception. It took a bit of back and forth to convince her to actually act, because she hasn't acted in a while. In my documentary, she was just being herself because it's a documentary, and in my short, she had a very, very small part, with like a line or two. Basically, it was almost like a silent character. Um, so um, so yeah, she was also a bit nervous. She's like, I don't want to ruin your film because it's so contingent on the actors, and I haven't acted in 10, 15 years, and I've never acted in a feature film. So she was also a bit afraid of that, and she felt that if she does a bad job, then the whole film will suffer, and she knows how much this film is my baby, etc. So we did a lot of auditions. She's like, please
Really?
audition me.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
All
yeah. She's
right.
like,
Okay. Wow.
please audition me. Please audition me, and at some point she told me, and please audition other people as well, because you might fall in love with another actress that might do a much better job. And I did at some point audition a bunch
Wow.
of actresses, and there were a lot of very good ones. We have very talented actors in this country, but my heart was always going back to her,
You
unfortunately.
followed the gut. Yeah,
So.
yeah. You followed the creative instinct. You followed the gut instinct that was drawing you. I mean, you wrote Talama. You're writing
Mhm.
her. You're writing it with her in mind. It's difficult to take that attachment away in your head, because you're creating the film with the face already there. So you're looking for a different face when the face that you want
Yeah.
is right there. Yep, absolutely.
So I auditioned a bunch of actors as well, actors and non-actors, and towards the end, I get Hassan, and Hassan enters the audition. I kind of chased him a bit. In the beginning, he was like, "Oh, I'm traveling, I can't," and then he's like, "Oh, I'm back, but yeah, I can't come on this day." Anyway, eventually he came to the audition and he entered, and he's like, listen, I'm going through depression, I really don't want to be here, I don't want to audition, but like you insisted so much, so yeah, whatever, I'm here. And then we had long conversations, and I talked to him about the part and things like that, and then we started doing some improv, because when I audition, I don't do scenes. I do more conversations with the actors to get their energy, their outlook on life, on love, relationships, family, country, etc. And then we did improvs where he has to be all over the place and chaotic and comedic and energetic, and all of a sudden he was all of that. And I'm like, this guy told me 5 minutes ago that he's going through a depression. So I thought, this is okay. This is someone who can have an intense sadness, but cover it up with comedy and energy and just overall chaos. and exuberance. So I thought, okay, yeah, this is exactly what I need from Nino. And then I paired them up, Munya and Hassan, and immediately they were bouncing so well off each other, of each other's energy and all of that. So then I decided this would be the couple, and then we started rehearsing everything around the script. So just getting that chemistry right. So we would go out, we would speak a lot, we yeah, we went out for drinks. We would just spend time together for them to build that chemistry and that comfort around each other. And We spoke about every scene in the script, how they feel, like why they're behaving this way, and for the most part, they were completely on board. But sometimes, Hassan would tell me, "I don't think Nino would do that. I can't see him say this line." So I would readapt according to that, and same with Munya. Some scenes she was like, "I don't understand why Yasmina is doing that." I think so. I'm like, okay, what would you think Yasmina do? And she would say, "I think she would approach it in this manner or that manner, whatever." So I would rewrite. So it was a very collaborative process with getting the actors be convinced of their emotional journey and every action that they take throughout the screenplay. And as for the chemistry and all of that, yeah, it's either two actors have it or they don't. And I cast two people who had it, and they confirmed the part. Both of them, they confirmed taking the part when they met the other. Which
That's insane. That's
yeah.
beautiful. You know what I love is goes to show انه by the end of the day and a director's role is to make decisions. And حبيت انه both actors you it had passed by you in some way وصريت على اثنيناتهم. It's not like it's not
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
yeah it's very beautiful because normally you'd figure out that either someone is a bit dodgy or something, or you'd think, okay, I don't want to pressure them too much من الناحية. But what's lovely is that you followed an artistic instinct that I think ultimately
Yeah.
led to what they are now technically in the film, which is beautiful, honestly. So props.
Yeah. I really insisted on saying Hassan because I think Hassan has such beautiful eyes. There's something so attractive in with his long eyelashes. He has a very feminine energy in his eyes, and Munya has beautiful eyes as well. And I knew that a lot of the scenes would happen like that, to a point where I shortlisted the scene where it's really only just an extreme close up of one eye and an extreme close up of the other,
It's a
like
beautiful
that's how much I like their eyes.
okay, guys, I love your eyes so much that I've decided to add an entire scene just around your eyes and your pupils. And it's a beautiful scene, by the way. It's one of my favorite scenes. But speaking of the cinematography,
Thank
we need to talk about this lovely,
Josh Hardy, yeah.
lovely looking film that you've released, because honestly, it is gorgeous. What something I love about it, it's not industrial, and this is new and fresh to see from a Lebanese screen. It feels branded in soul rather than industry, which is the best way. The best way I can differentiate it is how Hollywood films are branded with very high tech and stuff, and how A24 films are branded with a lot more personality. Is a بدك and it's mainly like a kind of emotional shift between the two. And I've never seen this kind of look adapted and screened بلبنان. I want to talk about this. I want to know what was the conversation. What were you guys exploring? What were you looking for to get to what you got by the end of it? Because it's beautiful. And please talk to me about that train scene because wow.
Okay, so I've always worked with Josh Hardy. It's been 10 years now that we work together, and there's a reason why I always work with him,
Absolutely.
because I'm a big fan of his work. So yeah, he shot my previous documentary, he shot my shorts, he shot experimental films that I've done, short docs. Anyway, he shot a bunch of stuff that I've done. So we see eye to eye, and we agree on, we trust each other a lot. Now, for this one, we started talking about the visual language very early. So he's read several versions of the script, and maybe 4 months before production, we started just shot listing, and we so so we yeah so you know, like 3 months before production, we already had an entire shot list. So then, you know, the rest of the 3 months, it was, you know, us, you know, sending each other voice notes like, hey, so I just woke up and I was thinking, why don't we shoot this one like this? Why don't we? So you know, when you have this amount of time just for creative iterations, your mind starts to go wild, as opposed to, hey, we have to shot this because we're shooting in 2 weeks. If I show you our first shot list, it's very boring in a way, very classical. But then when you let it mature and you start combining stuff together, you end up having a more mature vision. So the idea was always that, okay, we have three chapters. We have the childhood, we have the when they're adults, and when they're married. So when they're kids, pretty early on, we had this conversation that, you know what, we should be at their level, and we should film it in a bit of a, like the through line was fuzzy memories. It's memories, and it's fuzzy, and it's blurry, and you don't recall them because either you can't recall them, or because your mind doesn't want to recall them, because it's all traumatic experiences basically. Joe had the idea to shoot everything T1 full open. Basically, the aperture is at 1.0, so everything is out of focus, and your focus is very, very, very shallow. And here, you know, I have to like, hats off to our focus puller, Jonathan, because it was extremely complicated for him to always keep it
Absolutely.
in focus as you're going handheld and you're dealing with kids, and they do unpredictable things. You know, they never really hit their marks, and when they do, it's fake. So you're like, you know what, forget about the mark. Just you know, be yourself. So that was the language of the first part, which we defined quite early. Then when they're adults versus when they're married, we thought, okay, we need to do something that shows time passing and that shows that the country is in two different stages. So, you know, when they're falling in love, the country is prosperous, it's vibrant. So this gets translated with a lot of energy in the camera, handheld, you know, camera navigating, a lot of staging in foreground, background, having a lot of actors, and how the foreground and the background communicate, how there's no personal and intimate space, especially on Nino's side. It's all, mixing into each other, and it just feels like chaotic Beirut. And it's colorful. There's a lot of saturated images and colors, and the main source of colors is the food. We always thought that, yeah, the food, like, you know, the food has to be pink, you know, has to like beetroot, you know, has to be green and pink and red. And we started, you know, working with the chef to get all of these textures and all of these colors coming organically from the food, and from the restaurant, of course. So yeah, you see that when there's scenes with Nino, it's always very chaotic with a lot of characters and you know, a lot of handheld. With Yasmina, you see that her world is more, it's colder, it's more tripod. There's more distance. Everything feels more observant, as opposed to just walking around and just being in there with the character. And then when they meet, you see that it's Nino's visual language that takes over. So whenever they have scenes together, you see that it's his camera work or camera energy that takes over, and she becomes in his world. Then when they're adults, no, when they're married, sorry, and here the country is crumbling down and is in decline and everything is falling apart. Here, we lose all the colors. First of all, the camera loses that energy. Everything is on tripod. There's more wides. There's more tableaus, more, like, you know, vignettes basically, and it feels very different. It feels slower, and the whole pace feels slower. Even though, you know, the scenes sometimes cut faster, but the overall impression is that, oof, things have really calmed down, and it's her visual language that takes over now. And he's let into this world, and he's alone in these wide shots, and he feels a bit out of place. And of course, this is paired with close-ups that feel very different from the close-ups of the lovey-dovey part.
Even the time lapse sequence, the sequence with the time lapse
Yeah.
of the sun going through the house, come in as well. Feel, no, adds to your point,
Yes.
come in as well. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Here, this is the climax of just light being taken away. Like we're sucking the soul out of him and the city, and everything is really much darker.
Beautiful,
And this
beautiful.
organically came from Joe noticing that in 2020, 2021, 2022, when we started having like severe power cuts in Lebanon, things were just naturally more dim and darker. And so it is a creative decision, but it also comes organically from the fact that there's just no electricity, so there's no lights, and all the practicals are off, and things are a bit more gloomy. So yeah, that was a bit the evolution of the visual language. And the food also, you see in that later part, is almost non-existent. So you see much less food, and when you see food, it's bland, it's not colorful. And that was the decision that I took with Joe and the production designer and the food stylist, that if you take screenshots of the food throughout the film and then you put them all back to back in a timeline, you will get the evolution of the country and the relationship,
Brilliant. I got
which
wow.
yeah,
I
which goes
love
from
this. I love this. I love there's a huge place in like there's this it's a thread basically that talks about food psychology in films. So why characters eat what they eat to kill more, why they
Mhm.
eat at a certain point when. But what's funny is I love that you've created their narrative and you've allowed it to aid in your visual language together technically to create the full narrative that's happening between Nino and Yasmina. And
Mhm.
quite unique dishes, right? Like what was it?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
very unique
We
dishes.
worked with Chef Farid Shahab, who's so he's a chef, but also he consults for restaurants, and he
Wow.
does their menus and things like that. And oftentimes, he blends a lot of Lebanese cuisine
With
with
Italian.
Mediterranean flavors.
Yeah.
So he's very well versed in the fusion food and things like that, which is exactly what Nino needed, because this is someone who was attached to the traditional dishes that were invented by his grandfather and his parents, but at the same time he wants to stay trendy and relevant
I love
and
this. I
be
love
in.
this. This is
So
insane.
uh, so we worked with him in starting to create all of these dishes, and we did a few iterations of the menu, doing you know uh, kafta alla polpette,
Yeah.
and things that feel very Lebanese, but
There's
also very
risotto risotto ورق
risotto
عنب
عجاج.
عجاج.
ريزوتو عجاج, exactly, ريزوتو عجاج. He has فريكة لبنة تفاحتين. He has
Gold. I
there's
love
so
it.
much, لبن citrus cake. Anyway, things like that. So now the tunnel scene. So yeah, okay, this one is quite interesting, because initially I was telling Joe that we need to transmit visually the feeling of euphoria when there's someone you're very much in love with and completely into, and you're having an intimate a scene with them, or an intimate moment for the first time, like the heartbeat and the butterflies in your stomach and your entire body is just like on a high. We needed to retransmit that visually. And in the script, initially, this scene happened in the train station. So I had them go to the train station and have their first kiss in the train
Oof.
station. But
Interesting.
then yeah, I thought that it's so, I don't know, there's something that's so forced and so boring, in a way, and it would harm. That's gonna be a bit of a spoiler. It's gonna harm the ending. Let's put it this way. That if they go to the train station, it's gonna take away from the power of the ending.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Okay. So
Me no trying not to
he
react.
so he told me, okay, why don't we just recreate the train, with lights, with like chase lights. It's as if they're on the train but they're not, because in their minds it's as if they're accomplishing this misconnection, but we don't want to put them in the train station. So what can we do? And that took some time. It took him like 2 months of him just thinking about the scene day and night. He was really, really obsessed with the scene and trying to crack it out. And then he told me there's a tunnel, there's a tunnel in San El Fil that I've seen 20 years ago because I shot something there, and I've always wanted to go back to it and shoot there. Uh, so uh, yeah, we kind of went back, and we saw it, and we're like, okay, I think we can do something very cool. So we talked to the municipality to install our own lights
Nice.
in the
Wow.
tunnel to
Yeah.
close the tunnel, and we had permission to do so from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. when no one takes it. And yeah, we had our lights, and he worked a lot with his gaffer, Mizzi Azrai, to try to, like, figure out that whole thing.
Yeah.
And that's how it came about.
It's a beautiful play on magic realism, by the way, which is something I adore. And this is what I meant in my review when I said there's many visual metaphors, and that's why you never get bored. I love the transition also to getting into the scene. From there and on, and even kind of before, there's a lot of, like, in literature, like magic realism. Technically, it's like part of like postmodernism and stuff. So technically, what I liked is that I felt like I was reading these scenes, which was very interesting. Like, I can imagine reading this on a book where where they're in a tunnel and slowly the train lights start to kind of like pass, blending in like past and present. It feels very unique to see visually when you feel like you can read it like a poem of some kind, which I love, by the way. What I'll talk about next, the score. رائع
Yes.
رائع. Anthony Sahyoun did a brilliant job at this. What I'm so curious, I'm so curious to know what شو حكيتوا what was the initial meeting, because Anthony's work is unique, it's very unique من ناحية
Exactly, no, that's why.
we've seen so much of different styles منه technically, so I want to know what was the conversation that came in that got to the end result of it as a whole. If I'm not mistaken, في كتير collaborations كمان as well be the score, right? There's a lot of people that come in with Anthony
Yes.
as well, right? By the way, you can find it on Spotify.
Yes.
Just in case.
Yeah, on all streaming platforms. So again, this is my fifth collaboration with Anthony. So he's on my previous documentary. He's on my short documentary, Beating Hearts, the one we had talked about. I've done a music video for him. We did an experimental short together. Anyway, so we've worked for some time. So I'm very used to working with him, and I love the fact, I really wanted him because I know that he understands, like, Oriental, Arabic, Lebanese music, and traditional music, and at the same time he's into electronic music, ambient music, post rock, things that are more radical and more edgy. So the combination of these two has always made him a very, very interesting musician for me, to my eyes, because there's something very traditional but something very fresh at the same time. Anyway, so we spoke about the score, and I told him we both agreed very early on that we don't want to do what's expected from a romance, which is going to be orchestral and violin and piano and kind of a tear jerker film score. So it took some time, actually, for us to find what would be the sound palette, and I started sending him scenes. The first one that I sent him was the tunnel scene, the one we were just talking about, and here I don't know why he told me, what, I'm starting to think that I want to do something with the double bass. But I want to use the double bass in ways that is not expected, because double bass usually is going to be like very stringy. Here I want to play it like almost like a guitar, like I want to do arpeggiated stuff, like things like that. So that's how he went to collaborate with Makram Abul Hassan, because he's probably the best double bassist we have here. So they started working together, and at the same time he went back to start using instruments that, like, harmonizers and more electronic instruments, where he would record voices on top of it and process them electronically using instruments that almost like autotune that Kanye West uses.
I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you have like this very classical instrument, the double bass, that's using something very electronic and
Give
very
the last name drop I would expect.
processed electronically. No, really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He told me at someone, I'm like, wow, this is such an interesting sound. I was like, yeah, Kanye West uses that. I'm like, oh my god, I cannot believe you're doing that. But the combination of both gives you both the feeling of something nostalgic and something a bit melancholic, but at the same time something very fresh and very modern. And that is exactly, these contradictions. It's exactly the tone of the film and the directions. So he wrote that first score, and he started, singing. He went back to like poetry from 200 years ago, where they would take a word and just spell it out. يعني مثلا بحر, they would
Yeah.
call it باء وحاء وراء,
Wow,
things
wow,
like
wow.
that. So again, it has something extremely traditional and something Kanye Westy, Kanye Westy, or like Daft Punk, or something more processed and electronic. So we did the score, and then we decided, okay, this is a very interesting mix. Let's just use that. So it was all like double bass, drums, synthesizer, and just electronic processing,
Yeah.
electronic music. Then he started using the organ. We at some point he wanted to introduce the organ, and these sounds and the machinery he has is very analog, in the sense where it's made of copper and things like that. So it gets all the frequencies, like the radio and the AM radios and the FM radios and things like
Yeah.
that. So he could only record late at night, and sometimes he would even capture some of these radio frequencies, but he kept the dirt, basically, because he felt that sometimes it adds very interesting texture. So if you listen with headphones full on, you might sometimes listen some radio
This is genius.
playing
This
in
is
the background.
genius.
Yeah,
That's
which is
perfect.
kind of insane. Yeah. I mean, you need someone like Anthony Sohion to do these things. Some tracks, for example, he wrote quite quickly. Other tracks he would write in like 2 days. We would do like iteration over iteration over iteration, and then nothing would really work. And then he would get an idea, and then 2 days later he would send me a track, and I would be like, wow, you wrote this in 2 days? He's like, no, I wrote this in 5 months and 2 days, because it's 5 months of just doing garbage, or things that are not clicking, and then all of a sudden it clicks, and he gets it.
اول شيء صار معي a funny thing in the middle of my head. عم بتخيل انه I put the headline of this Kanye West is the main reference to this to a sad and beautiful world. That was beautiful. This is genius. This is genius, honestly. Like I'm knowing Anthony's work, I'm 100% sure أول ما حضرته there's so much depth that's going into it. بس عن جد يعني hearing about the process I'm not surprised, but it's very very interesting to hear. I'll ask you this question because I am very curious about this, and I feel like other people will be interested in this. Any influences or references from other films, or any kind of like narrative or even music video, fashion film, whatever it could be, that might have came into the process for you narratively, visually, score, or anything of the sort? Would you
A lot, yes.
Yeah, like if you had to
Of
pick,
course.
we'll do like a letterbox thing where you have to like pick 4 maybe or something.
It's very tough, but let's see. Big Night, I think. Big Night, a movie from the 90s,
Yes.
which happens in a kitchen.
Yes, I see it.
It's a comedy also, and yeah. I was looking at this film mostly for just how they're acting, the relationships between them, this sadness. It's, for me, Big Night is a film about the immigrants' experience in the U.S., the American dream, and failing at achieving that, and the harsh realization that it's you can persevere and believe in it and all of that, but by the end of the day, reality hits you in the face.
No, I hear it.
And,
yep.
Yeah. So definitely there's that. In the Mood for Love, an obvious one. Wong Kar-wai, just the work of Wong Kar-wai.
Just for you. We'll bring it in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, one crore. Yeah, yeah, of
My
course.
I love him with such an
It's a Criterion Collection,
yes, yes,
or
yes, Criterion,
yeah.
Criterion. I feel like I want to one day do a video flaunting my Criterions, بس إنه ما بحس there's a big market for that بلبنان unfortunately, so إنه I pass it will have to mate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One crore why for the flashiness, the love. I would say what else? I think script writing wise, a lot of Hiroshima Mon Amour,
Yes.
um,
Wow, the close-up
the impossibility of
sequence.
love.
The close-up sequence in the beginning and then the close-up sequence
Exactly,
wow, wow,
exactly.
wow, wow, beautiful, beautiful.
And then I would say French New Wave in general, just the playfulness of some of the shots, like these tracking shots, like these running shots that are sidewise, and you have the characters, les 400 coups, the kids misbehaving and
Yep.
being like extremely natural in what they're doing, how he's directing them. Um,
Honestly, beautiful selection. Beautiful, beautiful selection. Um, the film has toured in many different countries. It's toured, it's gone around, it's won a lot. How does it feel screening it here?
It's the best part, for me. This has always been the intended audience. It's always been a film for Lebanese because I think they would understand it best. Even though I think the story is quite universal and people are getting it, but there's something about screening it in Lebanon. For example, we did a Q&A a couple of days ago, and someone from the audience said, I feel that this film speaks to me so much more than it would play internationally, because I know that this is Jamaise. I know that this is the drone. I know that this is the mountain, like this specific mountain. I know the history attached to this shot, to that location, etc. Like, yes, I'm seeing the Saura, the connotation to the Saura. I'm seeing all of that. So and the humor, of course, the choice of words. You, you can never really translate. You can get close to it, but you can never really translate the intricacies of the language, of the Lebanese language, and the humor. So yeah, typically the Lebanese films that travel a bit in festivals, they typically get screened outside, and a year and a half later, they come back home. But here we decided that no, let's start with Lebanon because this is like the real audience for it, and then we'll continue the theatrical
All
releases
right.
outside. Of course, that was preceded by international festivals, because that's the rule of the game. You play in festivals before the releases. But in terms of theatrical releases, the first country where we released was Lebanon.
Okay, all right. I had a lot of people asking in the comments, and they're still asking in the comments, and they private DM'd me. Where can they find this film? When can they find it online? And is it screening anytime in the MENA region? I had questions from Egypt, Dubai, and Saudi. So Emirates technically, and Saudi. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah.
people in the UK that asked. So is there any screenings near? I'm just trying to do them justice by asking Talama. I have you in front of me.
Yeah. No, the film has been acquired by various distributors, so
Lovely.
it's going to play in most European countries,
Okay.
uh, theatrically.
Okay.
It's going to get releases in the US and Canada as well. It's going to get releases in Brazil.
Okay.
It's going to get releases in Asia, like in China, in India, in Taiwan, and some Asian countries.
Okay.
In the Arab world, it's also going to play now. I don't know if it's going to get a wide distribution in the Arab world, or if it's going to be more art house type of theaters. We're still working these details out, but yeah, it is going to play in all of these countries. And you know how it is. The streaming platforms, they come in after
Absolutely.
the
Yeah, yeah,
theatrical
yeah, yeah. Yep,
releases.
yep. And this is what I replied to some people, telling them that I don't expect it to come on Netflix anytime soon or anything like that, just because in هلا there it's running theatrically. Anna, I'm done من ميلتي. I had a blast in this conversation, by the way.
Likewise, really, Adam. This was like يعني مش يعني I'm ما بسيرك بس إنه this was the time I spoke the most in depth about the process, especially cinematography, writing, and music, because again, we actually have the time to speak, and I'm talking
Absolutely.
to a
Yeah,
filmmaker
yeah,
who.
yeah, yeah.
Who knows how to appreciate stuff, like
Thank you.
who understands the work that is put in you know, when you work on a score, you know what it takes when you work on a script.
Thank you for this insane conversation as a filmmaker, as a friend,
My
as a
pleasure.
fan of the film. Thank you so much. It was insane, and I feel I have no idea
Thank
how
you.
I'm gonna cut
Thanks,
this in
Adam.
3 minutes. I feel like I want to give everyone every bit of this interview. بصراحة, literally.
Thank you. Good luck, Zo. Thanks. I'm happy it was interesting. And this is great, by the way, because it's the first time I'm talking about the film like this.
Yay! Lovely, 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 lovely. I'm so happy to
لا
hear
عن جد
this.
لانه هيك usually it's with Q&As and things like that you have to answer with, you know, within a minute or two. This is the first time where I'm really
You're fully
walking you
fledging
through
it
the
out.
process of
Fish
things like that.
خلقك, fiش خلقك. Take as
So
much time. I'm all ears,
exactly,
and I feel
لانه
like I'm getting
filmmaker
like.
filmmaker.
يا حبيبي. Thank بالعكس, like really, I'm very happy to be hearing all of this. By the way, I just off the record, يعني I'm there. I'm taking some things, so I'm loving hearing everything. So بالعكس, thank you, Izashi.
Awesome.
Lovely. Okay.